You're listening to the #1 podcast for nonprofit leaders, getting your nonprofit fully funded. This is the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. If I were reading this letter and it said, we're trying to raise $50,000 to keep the lights on,
right?
Why would I be excited to give that? I would be
to finish the year in the black.
Yeah.
Doesn't excite
people.
people.
The way that I think is, look, I'm trying to put food on my own table, and I'm trying to balance my own budget. So good luck.
Yeah, it appears you must be a poor manager of your resources if you are in deficit.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. We are so excited that you are with us today. I know there's a lot of podcasts that you could be listening to, and we thank you for choosing to listen to the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. I am your host, Jason Galasinski, and with me, my co-host, Jim Dempsey.
Hey, Jason.
And together, both of us have over 60 years of development experience. Jim is over 40 years working in ministry with one of the world's largest organizations called Crew.
Yep.
And I have over 20 years of experience working in the software side of the nonprofit world. And we've helped over 4,000 ministries raise over $1 billion through our software solutions. So Jim and I are excited to have put our heads together for this podcast and to share some great development tips on how you can get fully funded for your organization.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to be talking about 7 steps to mastering your year-end fundraising campaign. And Jim, we're in September.
Yeah.
So, it feels a little early. Why are we talking about year-end campaigns in September?
Right. Well, Jason, in my mind, and all the statistics have proven this, that your organization is probably going to raise anywhere between 35 and 50% of their total annual budget in these last 3 months of the year.
Wow.
So to begin thinking about this ahead of time, it's not too early. In fact, you really want to kick off your process, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, the first week of October and go all the way through the finish line, which is December 31st.
Wow.
So for us to begin thinking about this now is not too early. And if anything, it is so critical for us to be focusing in on this session and this lesson right now, right here, right now.
Yeah. And I'm excited about this because we are going to be actually doing an 8-part series.
Yes.
And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, we're kind of picking topics all over the place, but very rarely over our existence so far have we done an extended series on one topic.
Yeah.
But this year we decided, let's just go ahead and dive deeply into the year-end campaign.
Yeah, there are so many important components related to the year-end strategy. Mm-hmm. And you could pick and choose which ones you want to do. But if you really want to see tremendous dynamic growth, you're going to take everything we give you and you're going to apply it, and you will be shocked to see the success you'll have.
Yeah. So this episode is more of an overview.
It is.
We're not going to get into too much detail, but we are going to give you kind of an overview of where we're going.
Right.
And so we're really going to be discussing 7 steps to mastering your year-end fundraising campaign. And each one of these steps that we're going to talk about on this episode are going to be full-fledged episodes very soon. So
we're going to actually unpack every one of these topics in an episode.
Yep. So without further ado, would you mind sharing with us where we're going?
I would be happy to. Well, first of all, it is so important that we start to focus in on what are the 7 steps. Mm-hmm. And the 7 steps are as follows. First of all, you want to determine what is your overall strategy in cause concepts. So when you're headed into year end, you don't want to go into year end just thinking, well, I'm just going to raise money for anything. Please give us, we need to keep our doors open. We need to continue to keep our staff on new carpet, make sure the lights are on. That's not what we want to go to year end. We want to have a very purposeful, chosen strategy. We want to have a very purposeful and chosen strategy that we're going to be focusing all of our efforts on to get to year end.
Yeah.
And that is going to include cause concepts that are going to be really motivating for people. We can either create new cause concepts, or we can take cause concepts that have worked in the past and reuse those. So it's so important. Secondly, we're going to also address a matching gift fund. Over the years, whether it be the Perfect Vision Dinner strategy or whether it be select mailings, emails, we have found that including a matching gift is a game changer. This goes back all the way back to 2005 for me, when the economy started to turn and I started to investigate that the idea of finding individuals who are willing to be lead gift people, who are going to go out ahead and match the gifts of those individuals giving. At that time, it meant that our individuals wanted to give what they'd given in the past, whether it be $2,500, $5,000, $10,000, but because the economy was so tough, they couldn't give what they had given in the past. But by having that matching gift, individuals who in the past had given $5,000 could only give $2,500 this year, but with the match, it could get them back up to $5,000. And that just was a game changer, as I said, opened the doors and got us moving forward. Number 3, write a compelling appeal letter. It is so vitally important that we look at multiple mediums to get our message out to people. We still have not turned the corner yet on electronic being more important than written mail. And in fact, we are finding that if you do investigative work on your mailing list, you're still finding that a majority of those people who are donors to most nonprofit organizations are still the builder generation and the baby boom generation. And those generations still really appreciate mail for their appeal to receive mail. And we're also starting to find out Gen Z is also very interested in written pieces because it's so unique.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because we've kind of gone full circle in a sense. You have a generation that was raised on digital things, and surprise, surprise, they like real things.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of interesting how we're getting back into real things.
Coming full circle.
So the fourth one is that we're going to utilize Giving Tuesday effectively. And this is a trend that really started 10, 15 years ago. Surprisingly, a lot of nonprofits just kind of ignore Giving Tuesday still. They just think it's a fad, and but it really is a good way to kickstart your year-end campaign. I know because it's around that Thanksgiving time period, and people are reflective, they're thankful. There's an attitude of generosity. So I think it can be effective to use it. I don't think we should ignore it.
No, not at all. In fact, actually, one of the biggest mistakes that I believe people make about Giving Tuesday, Jason, is they see Giving Tuesday as a standalone to their year-end campaign.
Right.
So they end up presenting something that is totally different, totally unique to their year-end strategy. When if they really lumped it all together and included the match that was part of year end, included the cause concept, included the strategies that are involved in that, the overall theme for year end, they would have a much better Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
The next element is recognizing staff and volunteers. Now, this might sound like a standalone or an odd thing to this,
right?
But as we're headed as a nonprofit organization to Thanksgiving and headed towards year end, there is no more appropriate time to thank our partners, but also, unfortunately, our staff are neglected and our staff are forgotten in their efforts. And many of our staff make major sacrifices and volunteers throughout the year. And then they're expected at one of the busiest times of the year to give extra hours, making phone calls, getting letters out, making sure that social media is taken care of for Giving Tuesday. We tend to forget those individuals. So I like to add the staff and volunteer, that recognition as an important element to our year-end strategy so that we can look at that. And we're going to unpack in our episode ideas and ways that we have appreciated and thanked our staff in unique and creative ways over the year.
Yep. The sixth one is we're going to follow up on the phone and in person. So we're going to talk about a communication strategy that's going to help you lock in some of those gifts. And really, Jim, from what I know about your strategy is it's not one particular thing that you do. It's incorporating a lot of little things.
That's right.
You know, so it's not like, well, if you just do this appeal letter just exactly right, that you're going to bring in an extra zero.
Yeah.
It's the appeal. It's Giving Tuesday. It's the appeal. It's prepping. It's all these little things that we talk about that kind of really make the big difference. And a big piece of that is going to be, follow up and phone calls and who to call and how to call, what to say. So we're going to be deep diving into that topic.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I always say that development is not about or, it's about and. So it's not do I choose this or this, but it's do I do this and this. Mm-hmm. And so this is just taking your development efforts to the next level. If you put a direct mail letter out, you're going to see about a 2 to 5% response based on who you're actually mailing to. Mm-hmm. If you follow up with a phone call, that will increase. That will take your response from 2 to 3% to 25 to 30%. Wow. If you go face to face with someone, you're going to have a 50% or more positive response. So we're going to talk about those different methods. We're going to talk about who to go to, when to go, where to meet them, and how to challenge them when you are on the phone or in person.
So that'll be a really exciting episode. All of this stuff as we're explaining, I'm just like, man, I can't wait to get to it.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have some fun diving in.
Yeah. The last one is that we are going to be implementing last minute giving strategies. So there's a bunch of things kind of, as we get closer to the year end, the actual year end, there's a lot of prep work. And there's a lot of things that we do as a process. But then there are some things that you do like the last week of the year.
Yeah. Well, we can see in December that 25% of your annual budget can come in the month of December. Wow. But the last week to 10 days, you can see as much as 15% of your total annual budget in that time. So kicking back as much as you want to, take a vacation, go on a cruise, have time with family is important, but you don't want to neglect the opportunity because people really make their decisions on who they want to give to at the very last minute. And it really comes down to convenience. If you are the organization that makes it easy for them to give at year end, you're going to benefit greatly. Yeah. If the individual partner has trouble getting a hold of you, trouble getting your organization, especially when it comes to non-cash gifts, if you're one of those organizations that makes it difficult, they're going to find another organization that makes it easy for them. So it is so important that we look at the all the strategies involved in that.
So here we are on September 18, and I am so glad that we are diving into this topic a little early. We've got 7 episodes coming that we're going to flesh out each one of these things that we just mentioned. I mean, in a sense, we kind of talked about it already, but we're going to be deep diving. We're going to go down. We're going to be going into the deep end. So you're not going to want to miss this series. I think you guys are going to learn a ton from this. I know I'm going to be learning a ton, and it's just going to be great. But Jim, if you wouldn't mind just giving us kind of a high level overview on like the timeline here. Like we're in September right now. What are kind of the big things that are going to go down between now and the end of the year?
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Yeah. Right now, this month of October, as we're headed in, I know we're mid-September. You need to even begin now thinking about now and through October, what is going to be our key project, program, new expansion effort, something that's going to catapult us into 2025. Mm-hmm. You need to take the month of October and really identify what are those key areas and what's the cause concept. Is it going to be going medical if I'm a pregnancy center, which would include getting a nurse practitioner, which would include getting an ultrasound? If I'm an organization that is reaching the heart of Zambia and wants to start an effort to open up 5 new classrooms and provide security for a community in Zambia. What are we going to do to get us to that point? How are we going to get are we going to focus in on one classroom between now and year end, 2 classrooms? How are we going to eventually get to that point? If we're
Christian
an evangelical,
school.
if we're a Christian school, what is it that we want to do? Oftentimes it's increasing enrollment. It is training teachers. It's getting people focused in on what are the priorities, providing scholarships for the next school year. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about, and we want to focus in on the month of October. Now, we give a lot of the month of October because it's not as easy to identify what you want and what you intend to do. This is not as simple as, let's just present we want to keep our doors open.
Right.
That is not the kind of thing we've seen with the Perfect Vision Dinner. We've seen with so many of our podcasts that just giving people a broad, keep the doors open, doesn't excite people, doesn't inflame the hearts of men and women, and does not get them to be very specific in their giving.
Well, we always say every organization has needs, but very few have exciting opportunities. So it's really important as you're coming into any appeal that you just think about it. It's always good to put yourself in the shoes of the person who is going to be receiving this letter. And just think like, well, if I were reading this letter and it said, we're trying to raise $50,000 to keep the lights on. Why would I be excited to give that? I would be,
to finish the year in the black. Doesn't excite people.
The way that I think is, look, I'm trying to put food on my own table, and I'm trying to balance my own budget. So like, good luck.
It appears you must be a poor manager of your resources if you are in deficit at this point in time. I'm going to take care of my own needs, and not yours.
It's not a good idea to say, help us finish the year in the black. Kind of implies you're not in the black right now.
Well, and that you haven't done a great job of stewarding the resources that you have. Absolutely. Well, then we move into November.
Okay.
And the first 2 weeks of November, we're going to focus in on starting to get the lead gifts for your match. Now, generally, what we like to do is we like to set a goal. Minor goal would be $25,000. We want to find 5 individuals who are going to give $5,000 or more to help with our goal. We're going to talk about that when we get into the session.
Jim, when you say stuff like that, you make it sound like, like every person down the street can just write a check for $5,000. Like, I don't know anybody that can write a check for $5,000. So I hope that you're going to give us some good tips on how to find those people.
Well, Jason, I oftentimes I have to disagree with that premise that you don't know someone who could give $5,000. So many people have diamonds in the rough that are sitting out there, and they don't have we don't know who they are, but they have the capability. Last year, I used an example in Crew where we had an individual who was sprinkling small gifts of $1,000 throughout Crew, and then all of a sudden wrote out a single check to Crew for $17 million. Whoa. That is a true diamond in the rough. We would have never in our wildest dreams thought that person was ready to sell their company. We had no idea that that person's company was worth what it was, and that they would be that concerned about making sure that Crew was funded that way. So I think there's a lot of diamonds in the rough, and we're going to talk about that during this session, is how do we find the diamonds in the rough, and how do we challenge those people? So that's your first 2 weeks of November is focusing in on. Then we go our second 2 weeks of November. That is typically the writing and production and actual mailing of your fund appeal letter. So you want to make sure, now you can actually write your letter sooner if you already know your cause concept, if it takes a while for you to process through. But we want to make sure at a minimum. This year, we're going to be looking at getting your letters out no later than the 20th of November. That will give time in between Thanksgiving. It's enough time before Thanksgiving, but it's just in that window that's ahead of a lot of other organizations. Because there's organizations right now, Crew being one, where we are actually getting out our year-end appeal in November, the first couple weeks in November, I've already signed off and approved our year-end appeal. And here we are in the middle of summer as we're recording this session.
Wow.
So it's so important that you get out ahead of those kinds of things so that you are prepared and ready for that. But you want to make sure that your letter is not getting out any later than the 20th. Now, also, you want to make sure that as you're headed towards year end, we're going to be focusing in on Giving Tuesday. And Giving Tuesday is in the first week, because Thanksgiving's so late, Giving Tuesday is the first Tuesday in December this year. And it's going to be so important that you get out ahead of that with social media, with your, once again, with the cause concept that we are focusing in on year end, and making sure that you're taking advantage of some of the platforms we're going to talk about, using giving pages that are free of charge, like with our partner organization, Fundraising. We're going to be looking at what are the different mediums, because for the most part, because it comes on us so quickly, we're going to make sure that we use social media for the most part. So that is going to be a really important aspect.
Yeah, and don't worry about, writing all this stuff down, because we are going to be putting all this in a PDF. So all this timeline and all these steps that we're talking about, we've gone ahead and presented it into a PDF. And actually, I'll just put a QR code on the screen right now where you can just scan that. And if you want to download that, use it as a reference, use it as a guide as you're going through your end campaign this year. I think it'll really be a great tool to help you remember what steps come when.
Yeah. And Jason, if I remember last year, we had a less detail-oriented document last year that we offered, and it flew off.
So yeah, definitely scan the QR code, download the PDF, and get that timeline in front of you, because it'll really help. Let's talk about December.
Yeah. Well, I just alluded to just a minute ago, December 3rd is Giving Tuesday. So make sure that you circle that multiple times on your calendar. You're going to be focusing in on that. The first 2 weeks of December, the 2nd through the 13th, you're going to follow up on those appeal letters. This is once again taking it from a 2% response to a 25 to 30% response with a follow-up phone call. This is not a difficult phone call, Jason. We're talking about, did you get the letter from Jason Galasinski for the heart of reaching the heart of Zambia? And would you be willing to make a gift to help open up a classroom for
simple.
A needy?
Right.
It's not multiple asks. And if you can't give $10, will you give $5? You can't give $5, will you give $1? We're just talking about making it very simple, following up.
I mean, if you think about it, what do you do when you receive a letter that you're kind of interested in, right? I mean, obviously we have the letters that we open in front of the trash can, but assuming that your letter made it to the kitchen counter,
right?
That generally means that the person is interested,
has some interest,
but we're all busy. We all have distractions, right? And so what happens is the letter kind of gets buried, other things kind of taken, and we kind of forget about it. So the phone call is just a friendly reminder.
It takes it to the top of the pile, and it says, would you be interested in this? It forces, not in a bad way, but it gets somebody to get off the dime and make a decision.
Yeah. Well, and it also communicates that you care enough to call them.
Right.
So that's the first thing we're doing in December. What else are we doing in December?
Well, midweek, mid-month, we are actually doing a reminder email out to people. Once again, did you get, and this will be to everyone, did you get the letter? Once again, here's the benefits of the program, the project, Reaching the Heart of Zambia, opening classrooms up. It's so important that we need your partnership. We need your help. It's just another layer, another level of reminder. People are getting, we have in Crew as an example, we have a whole set process of numerous emails that are going out after that letter, trying to get that gift to people, and in some cases even getting a second gift to people. Now the last 2 weeks, this is when we start doing our push. It's so important that we continue on our follow-up process. Now as you get close to the last 2 weeks, it's getting almost nearly impossible to meet face-to-face with someone. So you've got got to make sure that you are tracking the process. You are finding out who gave last year but didn't give this year, who is interested in what we're doing, and would they want to partner with us. So it's so important that we do that. And then focusing in on that last minute push. And then, of course, as you're close to December 31st, be ready, be prepared, be attentive to those last minute gifts. Yep. I've mentioned multiple times over the years that at 8:00 one night on December 31st, I was in Indianapolis attending a winter conference with college students making final decisions to come to Christ at a conference. And I got multiple phone calls that were forwarded to me, one in particular with an individual that was mildly frustrated and said, I cannot get anyone to answer my calls at headquarters. Can you help me facilitate a last minute stock transfer? Yep. I was able to do it. He was happy. We were delighted by the size of the gift. Yep. And I thought, if I hadn't been ready and prepared and didn't pick up that phone call at 8:00 at night, what would have happened?
Yeah. Well, this is good. This is exciting. So we've got a whole timeline mapped out. We're going to be walking through this process with you as we release these podcasts at different times going into the year end. So I think it would be really great if you could tune into the podcast every week so that you could be tracking and use the podcast as a way of holding you accountable to what needs to be done. Don't be lazy or say, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. Just, you tune in, you might learn some things. Download the PDF. We're going to put the QR code on the screen again. Get that timeline in front of you and get the steps in front of you. And then each week we're going to be just expounding on this stuff. And I really think this year is going to be a really, really good year.
Yeah.
One thing that people always say to me when we talk about the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program is they talk about how they would love to do the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program. They see the value. They want the coaching. They want the mentorship. They get it. But I get a lot of comments on, we just don't have the funds right now. Well, think of these next 7 podcast episodes as our gift to you. We're going to show you how you can raise the funds. And one of the things you could do is just apply the things that we're going to teach you in these next 7 episodes and use that as a way of fundraising to be able to build that seed capital that you need so that you could do your very first vision dinner. Yeah. Because the vision dinner is really where you're going to take your organization to the next level.
Yeah. I think about last week's session, Jason.
Yeah.
We had Rebecca Reyes from a pregnancy medical center, and she used the word accountability. Yeah. That what this provided, the Perfect Vision Dinner strategy, was accountability. And that's what I think the 7 sessions that we're going to offer between now and year end. And that's going to be the accountability that you're going to need to have the perfect year-end strategy and be able to get that seed money to help you fund the Perfect Vision Dinner.
Yeah. So download the PDF. If you haven't checked out the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program, I know we didn't talk about it a whole lot on this episode, but we talk about it a lot. But you can scan this QR code, or the link is in the description. We always put links to the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program because it is really our game changer.
It's our bread and butter. It's
really,
our foundation.
It's really the game changer that takes organizations to the next level. And being in September, we're really on the next class is coming up October 28th. Yeah. So we've got roughly about a month until the next class really kicks off. And we would love you to be in that next class.
Yeah, and spring is such a important time of the year to do your dinner, and that's what this will be for.
Right. I've asked you a bunch of times, do you have more success with your dinner in the spring or in the fall? And you always say, well, you can do it in the fall. It's good. It'll work. But you tend to notice more success in the spring. And we know a lot of Christian schools doing dinners in the spring.
Yep, that gears them up for the next coming year.
So if you're a Christian school, if you're a Fellowship of Christian Athletes, if you're a CEF, if you're a homeless shelter, if you're a Christian camp, if you're any nonprofit,
pregnancy
resource. Yeah. I could go on and on. But any nonprofit that is dependent on fundraising, you are not getting government grants. You're not living off of some big foundation. You need to highly consider the Perfect Vision Dinner and implement it. And even if you do an annual dinner, I would suggest you look into this because like Rebecca said in the last episode, they were actually doing quite well. They were raising, 300, 400,000.
And that was
fine.
And
they still felt like, you know what, we could probably learn a thing or two from these guys.
Right.
And
$550,000 they jumped to. That was amazing.
And a lot of that, she said, they learned a lot from us, and they've been doing it a while. So I think there's a lot you can learn from this. It will pay for itself probably 2 or 3 times over. So use this year-end campaign as an opportunity to build some seed capital so that you can launch your vision dinner in the spring. Jim, we really talk a lot in development about win, keep, and lift.
Yes.
And we really have a program for each one of these now.
Right.
We have, for winning, we have the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program because the focus isn't on just raising money. The focus is on building partners, new partners specifically,
right?
Which is what most people, they get stuck, when they do these annual things. So we're always focused on winning new people. That's what the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program is. Then the next part, keep. We teach that we want to keep people through cultivation, and we do that through our Winner's Circle program. So we start off with the Perfect Vision Dinner. We have an award for anyone who raises 100,000 or more, which is our baseline, really. Most people that go into the program raise at least 100,000, right? So if you're not raising 100,000 right now, if you're raising 30 or 50, you could probably double.
You have to take the course.
So
absolutely,
it will pay for itself.
Yes.
I guarantee you.
Yes.
And once you achieve that award, you qualify for the Winner's Circle. And in the Winner's Circle, we talk about what to do after all the keeping stuff. How do we build upon these new relationships? How do we cultivate them? How do we take them to the next level or prepare them for the next vision dinner? And then the lifting side of things, we talk about lifting people to the next level. And really, we have a program for that called Major Donor Mastery. And that's really focused on how do we have these one-on-one relationships with partners who have the ability to write big checks.
Because that's where the big gifts are going to come from.
But we don't necessarily know how to deal with that.
Right.
It can be, a lot of people know that they're out there, but they don't know what to do about it, really. So we do have a program for each one of these, win, keep, and lift. And it's really exciting. At Fundraising Masterminds, we get the privilege to be able to walk people through this process. And it's such a joy because we see organizations going from barely surviving to thriving hugely. And we really saw that in Rebecca. I mean, she just had like the joy of the Lord on her face. She is not in a barely surviving mode. They are killing it as far as like just
what they
doing
can
everything.
do for the Lord. To allow the Lord's, we always believe that the Lord gives us our plans. And, when you're just surviving, you can't even scratch the surface of God's plans. But when you allow him to work through these strategies, that's when you move from surviving to thriving.
Well, good. I'm really excited about this series that we're doing. So I hope that you're excited. I hope you can see the energy that we have about this. So we look forward to being with you, walking through this journey with you on this year-end campaign series. The next 7 or 8 weeks or so are going to be focused in on year-end campaigns. We kind of gave you the outline where we're going, but we look forward to walking through that journey with you, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.